Good morning. Welcome to Presence of Light with Charlie Riverman Bergeron here on Humanity Healing Facebook. As always, it's a joy to be here and meet with you, whether it be in person or live here on Facebook. I know that each one of us are connected at the heart, and it's important that we have communications where we all can share what's going on as we move through these excuse me, irregular times. Excuse me. Again, let me clear my throat and we'll get going. Today's talk stems from a message I received yesterday morning about acceptance, and it was an amazing thought process that has carried over into this morning, and now it's expanded into several words which have deepened the meaning for me and hopefully for each of you as we look into our own lives and how we fit into this world right now. So good morning, Melinda, Charlie, Joni, Liani, Alaya. It's a pleasure to see each of you here and know that you're part of my greater family here, not only of Humanity Healing, but a family of amazing spirit beings created by divine creator, regardless or irregardless of what name you attach to that creator being, that we are all one family, that there is no separation. So this was acceptance of self. How do we accept ourselves? How do we accept truth? And how do we accept that we're all moving through a process of evolution? Good morning, Marina and Deb. So the simple definition of is this the quality or state of being accepted or acceptable. And as we see the world play out, it is contradictory on a lot of levels to providing us with enough information to really stand up and feel ourselves and accept ourselves for who we truly are. We're always being directed to be something else, or to be like or not like, and we have all of these factions sort of trying to attract us into their philosophy or their way of thinking or their political or their economical standards. And the truth is beyond all of that, before all of that, there is this self, this capital S self. So self, the simple definition is self is acceptance is about, or self-acceptance is about being satisfied with oneself in any given moment, filling us with a sense of wholeness. Many of us don't feel whole right now. We feel shattered. We feel fractionalized. We feel separated. We feel disconnected. So self-acceptance doesn't mean that everything in our lives is perfect, but at least we have enough love and concern for ourselves to appreciate who we are and support that enthusiasm in positive ways. The other acceptance I noted was social acceptance, because right now, as I say, we're being pulled in so many directions socially. Social acceptance refers to us looking at others, those of us around us, or in our immediate community or in our larger world community, and comparing ourselves to others in order to feel like we fit in, or we're welcome, or we're really a part of this larger whole. So humanity healing fits that purpose. It's a group, it's a collective social acceptance of pretty much like-minded people. But when we extend that into the world, we see that we're just one small circle, although it's a large circle, but there are many other circles, and there's still the problem of how do we become socially accepted so that we can share with each other in order to uplift all of us. So as I always start my day, I start with a card, and this card here is the Sacred Meditation cards. This is a picture of a head-on collision between two galaxies. Now that doesn't look like it's very damaging, does it? It looks quite beautiful. But here's what's happening is that in the world around us today, we have this sort of factions of humans heading towards a collision. And will the result of that be as beautiful as that picture? So the card was called God's Garden. And, and I've been, again, I don't choose these cards, I just pick from a deck. And the message that it announced was that I am a flower in the mind of God, and I'm rooted in divine love. So here we are, gathering this morning, flowers in the mind of God, rooted in divine love. Split Feather says we are a spectrum, full spectrum collective on subatomic levels. All things are energy. In solidarity, we are the God particle. Diversity is our strength. Acceptance is an ego choice. Get out of your ego. The word Christ means to lift awareness out of ego. Thank you, Split Feathers, for your comment in the sign line. Each of us is entitled to speak and come from that place of self-acceptance and feel comfortable enough to know that what we have to say to others is as important as what others have to say to us. So this self, this capital L self, is not ego. This capital L S self is you in the truth of who you are, however you understand that, and beyond. Because the true you cannot be understood by the human mind. It's impossible. I don't care what anybody says. It's impossible. The human mind does not have the capability or capacity to understand that subatomic energy. It doesn't have the power to recognize the fullness of that diversity. Because if we look at the world around us, we're still finding new species of life. And we've been here how long? Okay, end of that rant, so to speak. But I want you to think of yourself right now as a flower rooted in the earth, with your roots reaching into the soil, and both water and sunlight nourishing you into an expression of fullness. Okay, as this flower, hopefully it is easy to feel attractive, that you are seen, that you are noticed. Hopefully it's in a garden, but if not, may you be visible in a field, or see yourself visible, some of you might, alongside a roadside. As you think about these aspects of yourself being a flower and who you are, it doesn't take long, if you think, for our mind to begin to wander off. This is the ego mind, to wander off and think up reasons why that's not true all the time. It's distracted. It's maybe we're seeing in the field of wildflowers, and the other wildflowers are more beautiful for us than us. So we lose some of that acceptance of who we are. Perhaps if you see yourself along the highway, you may feel alone or separated, as if you were blown there by accident, and you feel distant and unseen. And so what does that do to your self-acceptance or acceptance of self? It diminishes it. So when we look at the mind, what the mind is continually doing is distracting us from who and what we truly are. And it's only when we come back to that truth of who we are, as far as the human mind can understand it, it is then that we become whole again. We become part of God's garden again. And we change our acceptance of self. Because it's in the acceptance of self that the voice needs to express itself. That we need to be seen and heard. The next card I just randomly pulled, which I haven't pulled for a long time, is a Course in Miracles card. And it was a Course in Miracles facilitator many years ago. And my book is so written and it's hard to read the text anymore. But the message of that card was, truth can only be experienced. It cannot be described and it cannot be explained. Truth will dawn upon you of itself. That's in chapter 8, text line 150, I believe. What that is part of the reminder that we can never be separated from our source of creation. No matter what happens to us or happens around us. We have the ability to choose otherwise if we listen to the external information which comes to us as stormy winds. The wind just hit my window, which threaten to uproot us or tear us apart. That's we experienced that this past couple of days in New England. High winds, uprooted trees, broken limbs. That's the external. Inside, we have to stay in this acceptance of self. Who are we in the midst of all of this chaos, in the midst of all of this? Where is the truth in all of what we are doing? Let's see. Melinda says, I see myself in others and love that which is good. And when I see the less positive traits of myself in others, then I find it is that which make me mad and uncomfortable, thus creating judgment. Yes, we are all subject to creating judgment. And that's where, again, what we see around us, we then turn within us and we begin to judge ourselves. And so what we're doing is we're not paying attention to the truth of who we are, the true self, which we may not fully understand, but we know that there's a far greater self that we are needing to honor and to bring forth into the world in order to change the world. The change in the world is what? It's evolution. So we are evolving. The planet is always evolving. So too are humans always evolving. The galaxies are evolving. Everything is evolving. Nothing stays the same. We have created this resistance to change because we've made it profitable, or we've made it that some receive more abundance than others by trying to hold patterns which serve a few rather than the whole. This concept of separation. You can't separate the universe. So therefore, how can we really, in truth, separate humanity? It's impossible. It's only a figment of our imagination and the will of this mind that wants to carry that out. This is the time of self. And I don't mean self in a selfish way, but the true self, the divine guided self that needs no validation from the external. That acceptance of who you are within, that arises from within, to be given and shared with others for them to tap into their deeper inner self. So the last card of the series of 3 was an Abraham Hicks card, and it's there is evolutionary value in my personal preferences. And it's a deck of cards called Ask and It Is Given that I just happened to find on one of my shelves. And this card really hit home for me in the first 8 words. And they were, do not underestimate the value of your preferences. Wow. Do not underestimate the value of your preferences. Each of us, no matter who we are, have gone through a series of teachings and living that have always taught us to question everything, to the point where when we had a good idea or we had an inspiration from our inner true self, that when we expressed that, somebody outside of us said, "Oh, that's not good enough." Or somebody said, "No, you need to do it this way." Or whatever they said to us. This started at a very early age, okay? And it's programming is what it is. They want you to justify what they see and what they believe. But you might have your own value and your own preferences. So you may not like the color red, but they say, color this red. And when you color it purple, they ridicule you or diminish you in some form of making you feel irrational or undeserved. And that programming stays in this mind, in this ego mind. And it plays over and over again. And every time it gets another click, it's like clicking on this, it's like Facebook. Every time you click another like, it gets empowered in our brain. And we start to believe that what other people think of us is more important and more valuable than what we should already know in our hearts about who we are. And we listen to this song and we listen to this dance of other people trying to fit into that social pattern. And many of us, I know many of us that I've talked to personally here and privately, all basically experienced the same thing with me. We didn't feel like we fit in, that we always had a different idea than somebody, and we were always a little bit outside of the main wave. Or if we were in the main wave, we always had to hold ourselves back, our true selves back from being seen, because whenever we did, it became a weapon against us, a weapon where the world outside could manipulate us into feeling less valuable, not needed. So here we are in a world where you can see it playing out, where you can see world leaders playing this game, where you can see the manipulation of human beings for the sake of corporations, for the sake of destroying the earth. Doesn't matter whether you agree or you don't agree, the earth will show you personally it's being destroyed. There's no denying it. Will it happen in 1 year, 10 years, 10 million years? Doesn't really matter. What matters is that we have separated ourselves at a greater distance than if we were the flowers that I started the story with. We would be living in some barren mountain. How long do you think we're going to survive in that environment? We're not. So if we're the flowers, we need to make sure that we enrich the soil that we're living in. We need to make sure that we are connected to each other, to support each other in an environment that's balanced. I'm not going to go into environmental stuff at this point, but the reality is, how do we do that? We come back to a sense of self-acceptance of who am I, and I'm not crazy. I don't have to agree with everybody or what the common leadership of the world decides is best for me, or the medical industry thinks I need, or any status quo has in mind for my behavioral patterns. What I need to start doing now is accepting. It's self-acceptance. Accept that self that knows right from wrong, knew right from wrong from the very beginning of my birth, and then was told wrong is right and believed it. So the next part of that Higgs card was, for the evolution of your planet depends upon those of you on the leading edge of thought, continuing to fine-tune your desires. So here we are, on the leading edge of thought, when we can come to a place of acceptance of who we are, acceptance of the wisdom that comes through us. We can speak our truth. We can accept ourself and our truth and be part of evolution, the evolutionary process. We then become, we gather around on the cusp of restoring God's garden, which was the first card. Or we assist each other in co-creating a new garden. And we don't know what that new garden might look like. But we do know, or should know, that if we honor the divine self and speak the truth from that aspect of ourselves, what will happen is we will create a blossoming effect, like the flowers. They're not always in blossom, but when all of the blossoming occurs at the same time or in a similar time frequency, how beautiful is that? And how inviting to the bees, how inviting to the birds. All of nature takes notice because it's natural. It's designed to do that. We become the attractor field for those who are seeking a healthier and more sustainable way of life. We can't change that. That's the law of the universe. These are universal principles. This is creation in full power. When we deny that, what are we doing? We're really just choosing separation momentarily. Whether it's 5 minutes just to get somebody to be quiet, or whether it's 3 months in order to make a living. whether it's 10 years to pretend that this is the life you wanted. Eventually, if we live in that falsity long enough, there will occur the distortion and the disruption of our life patterns, whether it be health, wealth, or disillusionment. We'll lose faith not only in the world around us, we will lose faith in ourselves and our ability to do anything about it. And in that moment, we become perfect slaves. So this acceptance of self is really the key that opens the door of truth in order to co-create in evolution. I invite you all to take that step into acceptance and deepen your relationship with the word acceptance. Because once we can come to accept who we are, it becomes much easier to be able to disagree with somebody else, but accept them nonetheless. Because everybody is a mirror to each other. And it's all about coming to us seeing each other both individually and collectively as truth. Perhaps then we become, as the Bible quote, as some, I don't know the Bible quote, but it's the lilies of the field, how finely they're dressed, something to that effect. The lilies of the field are seen as flourishing, as balanced, as beautiful. Instead of all of this dark and gray and heaviness that we see now in the world, the suffering of so many who didn't ask to suffer personally. Collectively, there's a suffering that we all embrace. But it doesn't have to be to the point where we not only destroy ourselves, but we destroy the planet that we're living on. Perhaps if there's anything you can take away from my talk this morning is to deepen into that humbleness of our self-acceptance. Become humble to it. And in that process, spread that, share that to empower all of humanity so that social acceptance of this self-acceptance becomes a guide for everyone, especially the children. Somebody's writing here something about their 14-year daughter is feeling like that. How I see how being a parent is just, as you say, seeing ourselves through judgment of others. The children right now are our mirrors. And the pattern of being a parent and controlling your children to fit into these little boxes is not the way to parent. And the children are going to teach us. When we look into their innocent eyes, we realize that there's a wisdom already in there that we lost or it was taken away from us. So can we look into the eyes of children and be the lilies of the field, the flowers in their life that they want to pick, that they want to run to and say, oh, mommy, daddy, how beautiful. Let's be the flowers of the world, each one of us, by coming back into acceptance of self and who we truly are, which are amazing beings, far more than what humanity has ever been given credit for. And right now, we have ancestors and spirit guides who are flooding us now with information on how to do that, of where to do that, on what to do. And it's this higher self, this capital S self, that needs to listen and allow this human self to be the vehicle as it was intended to be in the very beginning. So as I close, I offer each of you a blessing. And the blessing is this: may your trust of self become fully known, creating within you an ever-increasing desire to share it with others. May the resistance of others not cause you to falter or cease with your sharing. And may all of us together co-create a resonant field of love and light that will assist all life in its evolutionary flow to proceed with grace and ease. My wish for each of you this week is that grace and ease enter into your life as a part of your acceptance of who you truly are. Doesn't mean you have to know what you're going to do or how this is going to unfold, but just take the first steps to embracing yourself and thanking yourself for being here right now in this amazing time of our human evolution, and to choose to lead from your heart, not from your mind. With that, I'm complete. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here right now. Whether you agree with me or you don't agree with it, it doesn't matter. The fact remains is that within you, the answer is in your heart, not in your mind. I love you. I thank you. I respect you. I am you. You are me. We are unity. Have a great week. Many blessings. Be a flower. Be seen. Make people turn. Make their heads turn. Say, oh my goodness, did you see that flower? Have a great week. Bye-bye.